Hello everyone! In this episode I'll explain how you can set up a safe, permanent water supply for your dwarves and how to set up a hospital to treat any injuries your dwarves might suffer from. Both of these are an absolute necessity to prevent unnecessary deaths in your fort. Unfortunately, my old computer died and my old save was lost with it, so this is a new fort brought up to more or less the level of the fort that was used throughout the guide. You may be wondering what the point of clean water is when dwarves pretty much just drink alcohol. You see, while dwarves can survive for a lifetime on just ale and wine, dwarves will not hydrate each other with alcohol. As such, if you have a dwarf in prison or locked into a hospital bed, your dwarves will only give them water, and if that's not available, then nothing at all. Plus, water is also needed for cleaning purposes, meaning that when a dwarf's wounds are being cleaned, water is an absolute necessity, and having that water be clean is really important. So first, we're going to dig out a cistern to use as the main source of water for our fort. This is essentially an underground cave filled with water. We're going to use a river as the primary source to fill our cistern with. But a good, albeit slightly dangerous alternative is an aquifer if your fort site has any. In order to do this, we're going to dig out a big room near our bedrooms to serve as our cistern. This needs to be at least 2 Z levels deep, so after we're done digging out the room, we'll channel the entirety of the room to get the depth level we need. This is not to make our cistern bigger necessarily, but rather if you fill a normal room that only exists on 1 Z level with water, all the water will be muddy on account of it being a non-natural source of water. However, if the water is at least 2 Z levels deep, the water on the lower Z level will be muddy, while the water on the upper Z level will be clean, thus giving you easy access to clean water. As dwarves drawing from our water source will draw water from the higher Z level first, before drawing it from the lower Z level. Next, we'll dig out all the resources in the walls of our new cistern. This isn't mandatory, but I prefer not wasting these resources, and extracting them at a later point becomes really difficult since the cistern will be full of water. Thus we're going to dig out all of them first and then dump all of them out of our cistern before we fill it. Next, we're going to dig out a tunnel from our cistern, with stairs leading all the way up to the same Z level as our river. We will not open up the tunnel to the water just yet, first we have some preparations to make. While designing the tunnel, make sure to put 2 squares at an angle to the main tunnel. This is to relieve the water pressure. Water falling down creates pressure, and it retains that pressure if going in a straight line. If you interrupt the straight tunnel by using this method, the water pressure is lost, allowing water to gently flow into your cistern instead of bursting into it and potentially flooding your fort. Next, we're gonna put up some grates and some floodgates. You can queue up both in your work orders. These will help manage what goes in and out of our cistern. Floodgates basically act as solid walls against anything that's trying to get into our cistern, including water. We can link these up to a lever and turn them on and off, and thus manage the flow of water into our cistern. This way we can choose to cut off the cistern from the river at any time in case you ever need to drain it or something. They also act as a solid barrier against potentially swimming threats that might want to try and get into our fort. Grates are a soft barrier against stuff ending up in our cistern by accident. since our cistern will be mostly closed off, we can't easily retrieve stuff from it. Meaning that if a wild animal gets flushed into our cistern somehow, such as by falling into the river or by just being a large fish, it can end up dying down there and contaminating our clean water. Therefore, we will build 2 grates in the tunnel leading to our cistern to hopefully stop anything ending up down there by accident. You can also hook up your grates to levers in case you want to lower them later for any reason, but this is pretty optional and not needed for the normal functioning of a cistern. Note that while floodgates are effectively solid walls, grates are considered buildings, and thus some dangerous creatures will destroy them trying to get inside. Build your floodgates and grates one at a time so you can link each up to levers of your choice. I recommend not tying your floodgates and grates to the same lever, but rather tie each type to one lever for easier management. Once you've built all 4, we can make the final preparations. First, seal off your cistern from the rest of your fort with walls to prevent accidental flooding. You can instead use a floodgate for this, but it's fairly rare for you to want to intentionally open up your cistern, and you might as well deconstruct the wall at that point. Once you've done that, pull the lever you've connected to your floodgates to open them up, and then from the surface Z level, channel out the last square connecting your cistern to the river. Water will now begin to flood into your cistern. While this is happening, dig out a nice big room above your cistern. Then channel a single hole in the floor leading into your cistern and construct a well above it. You may have to order some blocks, buckets, and a rope for this purpose. Once your cistern is full, designate the room with the well in it as a water source. And you're basically done. You can close the floodgates now for safety, as your dwarves will now have access to a plentiful, replenishable, clean water supply. Thank you all for watching, and see you all in the next episode, where we'll dive into how to create a hospital.